Hey guys, it's Graham. Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be giving you 3 signs that you shouldn't be an au pair. Before I start this video, please be sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you can keep up with all the new content that I make. Thank you guys so much for the support you've given me, and let's keep growing the channel. That being said, let's jump right into this video. Now there are a couple things I want to say before I jump into these 3 big signs, and the first of which is nowhere in this video nor in any other video that I do will you hear me say the words you should or you should not be an au pair. There is only one person that knows whether you should or should not be an au pair, and that is you. It is not my place to say that. It is not my place to make implications. All I'm doing in this video is trying to guide you along, trying to give you some advice that should help you make the decision on whether au pairing is right for you. Another thing you should know is au pairing is not right for everyone. Not everyone's cut out for it. It's not a lifestyle that everyone enjoys. So I'm making this video today specifically to give you some signs, some indicators that au pairing might not be right for you. As I referenced earlier, I'm not going to say downright that you should or should not be an au pair based off your answers to these questions, but I do want to give you a bit of guidance here, a bit of advice, and if you don't want my advice, then don't watch this video. If you find yourself relating to all these points, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be an au pair. That means that you should probably just reconsider your choice or reconsider your options. There are so many more options out there to travel and to see the world than just au pairing. Being an au pair is a great way to travel, but it's not the only way to travel. So I do encourage you, if you are finding yourself falling into these categories, don't give up on traveling or don't think that you're not cut out to travel. There are other ways, and you can explore other methods other than just au pairing. The last thing I want to say here is the decision to become an au pair is not a decision you should take lightly. It is a very monumental moment in your life. It is a big life move, so you should consider this. You should really think about it. Talk to friends, talk to family, pray about it, because it is a huge decision. So I'm not making this video to immediately turn you onto the idea or turn you off of the idea. I'm more making this video to guide you in the right direction and help you narrow down your options to see whether being an au pair could be right for you. Before I jump into the 3 big signs, leave me a comment down below letting me know kind of where you are in your thought process right now, or if you're a current au pair, leave some advice for other people who are considering becoming an au pair. So getting the intro out of the way, let's jump right into the first sign that au pairing might not be right for you, and that is if you don't like kids. If you've watched any of my other videos, you've probably heard me say that if you don't like kids, you probably shouldn't be an au pair. As a matter of fact, I might go as far to say on this one, if you don't like kids, you shouldn't be an au pair.
You shouldn't be an au pair. You shouldn't be an au pair.
And the reason why is because the job of an au pair is based around kids. I mean, that's the whole purpose of the job. You are a foreign nanny. Depending on what family and what type of position you accept, you could be working anywhere from 20 to 50 hours a week working specifically straight on with the kids. And if you're living au pair, there's no telling how many hours you're going to spend around kids. So if you don't like kids, if you don't enjoy being around children, then au pairing might not be right for you. If you're an au pair or if you know any other au pairs, you should ask them about this, because I think we all have a story of somebody who did not like kids, they became an au pair, and then they ended up quitting or just hating their experience because it is so childcare based. It is so based around children that people who don't enjoy children don't enjoy the job normally. In my first au pair experience, I was the only au pair in our urbanization until about my last 2 weeks. Another au pair from somewhere else in Europe came down to Spain to our urbanization to live with a family, I think for a month or a month and a half, just before the kids went back to school and the time immediately after they went back to school. We were only gonna have about 2 weeks to where we could interact with each other before I went home, so we didn't really get to know each other well, but very quickly, right off the bat, I understood that this girl did not like kids. You're probably wondering how I figured this out, and she told me straight to my face. She literally said, I don't like working with kids, in front of me and in front of her host kids. So right off the bat, she made it very clear that working with kids was not really her thing. When I asked her why she wanted to become an au pair, essentially she just said that she wanted to spend her summer in Spain and be closer to her boyfriend, who was studying about an hour outside of Madrid. It definitely struck me odd, and over the next couple weeks or so, just watching her, I very quickly understood that she did not enjoy the job of being an au pair. Anytime she was outside around the kids, or anytime she was with the kids at all, she was always playing on her phone, she was never paying them any attention, and when she could, she was handing them off to somebody else. About a week after that au pair arrived in the village, I was in the park with my 2 host kids, and they both had a friend, so it was 4 kids in total, when she and her host kids came to the park as well. There were 6 kids in all, and then me and her, and we were all there about 5 minutes when she said, "Oh, do you mind watching my kids while I run back to the house and use the restroom?" The park was like a 5-minute walk from the house, so it wasn't that big of a deal, and I told her, yeah, it was fine. So 5 minutes went by, 10 minutes went by, 15 minutes went by, all in all, 45 minutes went by. This girl was still not back, so I ended up just walking all of the kids back to the village. I knocked on her door, and she just like answered the door, took the kids like nothing ever happened, and didn't even apologize for leaving me with 6 kids in the park all by myself. Long story short, when I went back to Spain 5 months later in January, I asked my host mom about it, and my host mom told me that essentially the girl just quit after about a month because she was miserable and she didn't like the job, and they have not heard from her since. So all that to say, if you don't like kids, please reconsider the notion of becoming an au pair because you are surrounded by kids. If you've never worked with children, then you probably don't know if you do or do not like working with kids. So my biggest suggestion is, if you don't know whether or not you like working with kids, spend some time around kids. Spending some of your spare time around kids really does 2 things. 1, it's going to be a great resume builder if you do decide to become an au pair, and 2, it's going to give you a better idea of what exactly you think about working with children. Most host families like to see that their au pairs have some childcare experience, so if you don't have any experience, this will really kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Some great ways to do this are, of course, babysitting, but also coaching a sports team, volunteering at a school, volunteering at your church, just something like that that would put you in close proximity to children and give you a better idea of what exactly you think about working with kids. All in all, to sum up this point, if you don't like working with kids, I would reconsider the notion of becoming an au pair, but if you really don't know, spend some time around kids, figure it out, and then think about becoming an au pair after that. The second sign that you might not ought to be an au pair is if you don't like moving. If you get anxiety thinking about having a sleepover at your best friend's house, then you ought to reconsider becoming an au pair. What I mean when I say this is if you do not enjoy the physical action of picking up your life and taking it somewhere else. As an au pair, you will be moving from your home country to your host country, which is no easy task. Anytime you have to move your life is not going to be fun, and it's generally going to be an unpleasant experience. When you're becoming an au pair, not only do you have to think about physically moving yourself to a new country, but you also have to think about getting a visa, dealing with money, dealing with residency permits and stuff like that. So it's not a fun experience to do that, but if you really do want to become an au pair, it's worth it. When you are an au pair, you live with someone else, you move into their house. So naturally it is difficult just having to move your life from one family, your family, to a host family, literally moving your things, moving to a different country. It's just a difficult experience. Some people, like myself, do really enjoy moving. I love the idea of picking up and starting new somewhere. Other people don't really enjoy that idea. So if you find yourself in that category, becoming an au pair would probably be a bit more difficult for you. Not saying you shouldn't do it, I'm just saying it would be a bit of a more unnatural thing. Also, when you move to your new host country, you're gonna have to think about a new language, and I'm gonna talk about this more in the next point, but you will be having to use a new language, and there's all kinds of complications that come with that. Generally, when you're moving, it just takes time. It takes time to acclimate and to settle into a routine, and I think the most difficult part of moving to become an au pair is that awkward time before you arrive in your host country and you develop a routine. I think anyone who has ever moved away from their support system, away from their family and their country, could tell you that one of the most important things to do is to get into a routine. Get into a weekly or monthly schedule where you know what's going to happen, you kind of understand what the next move is going to be. That will really help you acclimate into your new life and into the new culture. But like I said earlier, this takes time. I think for me, it really took about a month and a half before I really felt comfortable in Spain and felt really comfortable with my host family. If you're looking to be a summer au pair, that's going to be pretty much your whole stay. But ultimately, it is something that does happen. It just takes time. And the good news here is the longer you're there, the better it gets. The more routine you develop, the more skills you develop, the more you learn about your host country, and overall, the more comfortable you get. Now, I do have to throw this in there before I move on to the next point. If you do move to your host country and get acclimated, you're going to have to move back to your home country at some point, and that's super difficult too. I always said that moving to Spain was scary, but moving back home was heartbreaking because I had all these friendships and relationships in Spain that I pretty much had to leave behind or at least put on pause. So moving in either direction is going to be difficult, but man, it is so worth it. The last sign that you might should reconsider au pairing is if you're not up for a challenge. The life of an au pair, and I think generally the life of moving abroad, is full of challenges. Anytime you change your routine, like I was talking about a second ago, or anytime that you change your life, it's going to be challenging because you're going to have to get acclimated to a new lifestyle and to a new routine. When you start a new job, it's challenging. When you move cities, it's challenging. When you move in with somebody, it's challenging. When you start a new language, it's challenging. And being an au pair is literally all of those things plus some combined in one time span. So it really does push you intellectually, push you emotionally, but I really think that after the experience you will grow and you will be a much bigger person than when you first came to your host country. When I first became an au pair, I was pretty freshly 18, and my parents told me that after I got back from my first au pair experience, I was a different person. I was much more mature, and I believe this because it really does push you to become a bigger person. It pushes you to be better and to try harder, and I think that's a really positive part of au pairing. One of the big challenges you will indefinitely face as an au pair is the visa. And getting over that big visa hump is your first really big win, and you get to move into your host country. But then even after that, it's full of challenge after challenge after challenge. And it's not bad challenges. It is good challenges that are going to grow you and make you bigger, but nonetheless, it's difficult. Another really big challenge you're going to have is the language. I think the majority of au pairs don't speak the language of their host country, so you're going to have a bit of a language barrier when you go. For me, I was pretty good in Spanish when I first went to Spain, but still it was very difficult because what I thought was good was really not good enough to fully survive just speaking Spanish. Even if your host family speaks your native language, not everyone in your host country is going to speak your native language. So you will definitely have to learn at least some of your host country's language in order to get by. But I think that's a really positive part of au pairing because after your au pair stay, you will be much more proficient in the language of your host country. It is a challenge, but it's a challenge with very noticeable benefits. The last really big challenge that I think exists in au pairing is working with kids in general. Kids are just tough. They're moody, they can be grumpy, they can be sweet, all in one breath. You know, it's just working with kids is weird anyway, but when you're working with kids in a different language, in a different country, it can just be very exhausting, very challenging. And like I've said a million times so far, it is a good challenge. It is a challenge that grows you, but it is a challenge. It is difficult. Once again, like all the other challenges I've said, if au pairing is really right for you, then working with kids is going to be a challenge that you welcome, and it's going to be a challenge that you love, just like I love it. So to sum up this whole video, being an au pair is challenging. There are difficult things to absolutely every aspect of it, but if it's really right for you, if it's meant to be, then these are just going to be little bumps in the road. It's not going to be something that will bring you to a full stop. It just might slow you down here and there. Like I said at the beginning, if you don't know whether you want to be an au pair, think about it long and hard. Don't just take my advice. Look at other people's videos, look at other people's advice, and really consider all your options. I wish you the best of luck. Okay guys, so that wraps up my videos on the 3 signs that you might ought to reconsider being an au pair. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel. Leave me a comment down below letting me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll be posting new content every Monday and Thursday. Muchas gracias por ver este video y hasta luego. Ciao.